Hi, this is Kevin Trainer, and I'm here to make some concluding comments about the Easy University tutorial project that we've been working on in our course. And it's with mixed feelings that I say that we've come to the end of the tutorial project for the current semester. Um, I'm pretty optimistic when it comes to setting out a to-do list and a schedule for these kind of projects. And I think we've squeezed in everything that's going to squeeze in. We've got a pretty reasonable uh, application on our hands. Um, there are a number of things that I would have liked to do that we didn't have the opportunity to do. But when you run out of time, you've got to lay down the tools and think about maybe doing the rest of the things in some subsequent course. So, um, what where do you do when you finish your project? Okay, those of you in the course are working on your own project, and of course, you're going to come to the end of the time in a couple of weeks to hand it in, and you're going to be in the same position. And here's what I recommend: come to a tidy point. Okay, I think we've come to a pretty tidy point with this easy university project. It's deployable and usable where it is. It may not have all the functions that we'd like it to have or all the features. Um, and then come up with a list of things that you'd like to work on going forward. I'd like to have always have a list of about three things that I'd like to work on soon. Okay, and typically I work on them one at a time, but my feelings change as time goes by about what's the most important. So let me tell you what my list is for the Easy University project, and you'll get a feel for maybe what kind of goals you might want to set for yourself when your project's over. Um, the biggest misgiving that I have about the Easy University project in its current incarnation is that um, registrations of students for courses is really attached to um, uh, all of the views that we have for section. Okay. Well, that turns out to be kind of inconvenient. Okay. You'll notice that when we created the groups for authentication and access, I created a group for Course Info Registrar. And I knew I wasn't going to get what I wanted by the time I did that. But my original vision for this was that we would have a role in the system in the user roles where a person could add and drop for students. Okay, and perhaps that's all they could do. Perhaps they couldn't create a student or change a student or create a section or create a course. They were just add and drop people. Okay. Um, so how would you do that? Well, um, what is uh, uh, particularly unfortunate in terms of the Django model architecture is that we've got model classes for our primary tables, but we don't get model classes for the associative tables, not automatically. So because we have a many-to-many relationship between section and student, um, that's currently um, on the model for section, and it is a many to many over to student. Now, probably in retrospect, we would have gotten a little more granularity in controlling the authentication and access if I had simply taken that property that built the many-to-many and not put it onto section, but put it onto student. So at least the people who got the authorization to work with the student table would have the opportunity to add students to courses. Add students to sections. Okay, that's a start. Okay, but the fact is that what we really want to do is we really just want to give a particular set of people access not to one primary table or the other primary table, but to the associative table. In this particular implementation, there is a table called Course Info Section Students. And let me just pull in the database client. And here it is, Course Info Section Students. So each of these rows in the associative table has an ID column. So that's a proxy kind of key. And we have a section ID and a student ID. Okay, and if we look at the data, these are all the registrations that we have. It's not called that. Okay, if we got if we had easier control over what these things were called, we would have called it registrations or registration. Okay. So this is the table that we want to give access to, and yet it's not a table. So how are we going to do that long run? Well, the way we're going to do it is we're going to create a set of views that work for registrations, even though there's not a model class for registration. Okay, and that's going to take some bending of the Django infrastructure. And this is always a problem in these frameworks that have this kind of model capability, this object relational mapping. There's always a mismatch between the features of the object-oriented programming things, in this case the Python Django things, and then the relational database constructs. And there are times when you just have to get creative in order to get what you want. So this certainly isn't impossible. I would have liked to have the time to do it. I didn't get time to get there, and that probably would be first on my list. The next thing that bothers me the most is that the controls that we're using for these multi-selects when we're putting students in classes, or we're assigning instructors to classes to sections. The ones that we're getting from the CSS that we inherited from Pinkham, they're pretty unusable. And there are lots of JavaScript frameworks that will create multi-select controls that are much more user-friendly. So given that we have the interface we have to how to register a student or how to assign a section to an instructor, I think we've got to make that more friendly. Um, I would like to do some things from chapter, I think it's chapter 23, the admin chapter. There's a lot of good things that you can do that Pinkham, I think, shows in fair detail about how to take um, the admin user manipulation and customize it to make it more user friendly. So somebody who was a system admin, if we gave them access to those tools, if we give them access to the tools that come right out of admin now, they're good enough. But I think we could improve them a lot. So I'd like to do that. The other thing I'd like to do is I'd like to do some of the stuff that Pinkham did with as you sign up a user, sending them a confirmation email, having them either confirm or set their password, the ability to ask to reset your password and to do that with email confirmations and all that kind of stuff. The details on how to do that are pretty much all there in the Pinkham book. We just didn't have the time to do it in the current semester. And the other thing is the layout and the styling that we get from the CSS is certainly better than no layout and styling, but it's kind of clunky. A lot of the titles are too big, things are in the wrong spot, that kind of stuff. So that could use a cleanup. So that's on my list. So these things are pretty much here in the order that I'd like to do them. Certainly the create a set of views for registration, I think that would be the top one. The multi-select controls, that probably would be 2. And then after that, the 3 things that I have down there in the bottom there, they're all kind of competing for number 3. And what I find is that I keep these lists, and they change over time, right? But typically when I have some time, I'm working on whatever the next one is. And then when I get that done and properly tested, I deploy that to production. And then I go back to the to-do list and I freshen it up before I pick the next thing to start. So I'm hoping that you have the same kind of interest in whatever project you chose to do, that you can have a same kind of a wish list or to-do list for your project that will give you a chance to, 1, keep your project alive, but 2, keep your hand in with Django so that it's a continuing skill for you that you're able to rely on. So that's it. Hope you enjoyed the tutorial project. I know I did. And I'm going to say bye until next time. Bye-bye.